All right, last week we worked on a shabuzi type of thing, a pop country type of thing. I said if you guys wanted me to mix it in the next video, I could, and it sounds like you guys wanted me to mix it, so here we are. I actually mixed this yesterday, but I was just like tired as hell and in a terrible mood. So we're actually just gonna break down the mix I did yesterday, but today.
But first, hi, my name is Matt. I'm a producer that turns your demos into records, so if you want to work with me, click the link in the description below. If you're an artist, I got some free resources for you, from equipment guides and writing guides to how to market and release your music. And if you're a producer, all my sample kits and presets are on my store, so if you're interested in any of that, all the links are in the description. Hope you enjoy the video.
So if you haven't watched Monday's video, this is what the beat sounds like. Yeah. Okay. First things first, I did add a couple parts. I added these claps that were too loud when I first pressed play, and then I believe I added the bass. I don't think I had a bass in the last version, so yeah, there's that. Just keep that in mind. Okay, we'll start with drums. I typically start with a main part, so whether that be drums or a lead vocal, kind of like the most important part. For this, there's no vocals anyway, so we'll start with drums. First thing I wanted to do was get those drums nice and full. I used Oxford Inflator for this. Here's the thing. Everyone uses it all the time, says it's amazing. I don't use it that much. This is actually the first time I used it in months, but regardless, let's listen to it without the Oxford Inflator. Pretty wild. Nice and full. Let's turn on Oxford Inflator and see what that does. So they say to use the effect at 100% on the Oxford Inflator and then use the input to kind of adjust the tone. I don't like the idea of that. I don't know why. I just feel like I'm just against it for some reason. So I put the effect at 70.9%. Didn't touch the curve and then adjusted the output a little bit. Next, I wanted to go into an actual limiter. Not saying that Oxford Inflator isn't a limiter, but I didn't really use it like a limiter. This I actually used like a limiter. This is the Pro L2. You'll see what it's doing here in a second. So you'll see it's not catching every single peak. That's kind of by design. I don't need to slam every single peak that it has, or every single transient, sorry. It's just kind of slamming the transients that peak out a little too much, which in this case is pretty much the snare. There is some heavier parts somewhere around here that peak a little more. Yeah, like that. Simple stuff like that. I don't want the drums to poke out too much, or at least not poke out irregularly, if that makes sense. So cool. Next thing I wanted to do was, to me, the snare is a bit too deep and full and low-endy, and I didn't really like that. It didn't really fit too much with the rest of everything else. So I went into Superior Drummer and jumped into this little snare mic we have here, snare bus we have here. And first thing I did was I added a compressor, which I think I actually might have done in the last video. If not, this is the compressor. It's just compressing the snare. So that's going to compress the transients even more. We're also going to bring in a transient shaper. So it might seem weird that I'm compressing transients quickly and then bringing the transients up. Not only is the compressor slamming the transients, it's actually adding a little more sustain into it, which you could do with the transient shaper in here, but I just don't like the way it sounds with the increasing the sustain. So I added a little more smackiness, and then I compressed the whole thing, or actually did that in reverse. I compressed the whole thing and then I added a little more smackiness because I wanted it to poke out a little bit. However, I didn't want a lot of low end, and I also wanted to kind of drive it a little more, so I had some tape saturation on there. Let's actually solo this snare, and we'll hear what it sounds like when I take out that saturation and put it back in. Brings out those harmonics, which is what saturation does. Makes it a little more known to me, I think. And then I had some EQ in here. Again, I didn't want a lot of low end, so as you can see, I did a low cut here to whatever this is. I'm going to say 155 maybe. Then I did a little boost at 5. I hate that it doesn't show you the frequencies. Then I did a little kind of high mid boost to have it poke out a little more, and then it looks like I did a little high boost for some air. So let's take that out and put it in. Then in context, when we listen to everything else, I'll take all this off and I'll put it back in. Makes the snare known. You can hear the snare, but it's not taking over a lot of the low-mid frequencies. Cool. Kick and snare, I didn't do anything on. Yeah, I mean, this snare I did in the last video. This snare I did in the last video. I just put a bit of Magic 7 on. This is a non-linear reverb. It's very 80s. If you think of like Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight. That's kind of that 80s width. It's a gated reverb is what it is. Add some width. Let me take it off and then I'll put it back on and then you'll see. So with it off and with it on, fills out that kind of stereo feels. Very nice. Tambourine, I didn't do anything on. Tambourine was really easy. This loop, in fact, everything by Make Pop Music sounds good right out the bat, right out the gate, right off the bat. One of those sayings. So I didn't have to do anything there. Acoustic guitar, same sort of thing here. Oxford inflator to warm it up. Let's listen to it. Take it off and put it back on. Much more in your face. Very nice. Then we go into a Pro Q. This frequency area, I just despise. My guitar loves that frequency. I hate it, so I pretty much always duck it. Just sounds disgusting. It's like it resonates your skull. I hate it. It makes you choke, sort of thing. Also took some low end out. You really don't need anything below 70 hertz for an acoustic guitar. Not saying you always have to cut it. I hate when people say you have to do this, or if you're not doing this, your mixes are trash or whatever. Do what you think sounds good. In this case, I did a 60 hertz cut, 70 hertz cut. All right, into a de-esser. Now, you could do the same sort of thing here where you handle the clickiness in a dynamic EQ. I didn't. I just used the de-esser. It's easy. I also love this de-esser. So if I audition this, I was kind of searching for the clickiness, which was there. It was actually mainly around 7 kilohertz, but everything up as well was clicky. So the main click was like 7 kilohertz, but everything above it as well was not needed. It's an acoustic guitar. It's not like a violin, right? So if I take this off, listen to those clicks. Put it on. Just a little bit more subtle. I don't want to get rid of all the clicks because then you kind of lose the timbre of the acoustic guitar. Just kind of want to get rid of the annoyingness of it. The stuff that's a little too loud to be like tasteful and colorful and nice to listen to, right? So we tamed that with a de-esser. Then I wanted some air. Classically, just put the pull tech on. You can put fresh air on too. Fresh air is great sometimes. But yeah, just a little EQ boost here. Take it off and on. Opens it up a little bit. That airiness is nice because it's nice to, well, for this guitar specifically and for this production, the guitar is nice and upfront and very intimate. And the whole song is, I wouldn't say like intimate, like in a folk recording sort of way, but the idea of it is intimate, kind of like what I was saying in the last video is like, I feel you, I understand you. So this guitar having air in it and being really nice and up close, it's nice to kind of have that relationship, if that makes sense. Kind of sounds like I'm speaking out of my ass. Promise you I'm not. I want that brightness, that depth, that real intimate sound for that acoustic guitar. And that, by the way, all that processing is on the acoustic guitar bus, not on the actual acoustic guitar layers, because it's the same guitar with the same mic, the same recording. So why not just process them both at the same time instead of doing the same processing on 2 different layers? So that's why it's on the bus. The GTR dead strums, the acoustic guitar strums, have nothing on them. I want to listen to them again, though, because I like them. Love that stuff. Here's the piano. The piano, just like in the last video, is the Intimate Grand Piano from Labs. It's free. A lot of the Lab stuff is really, really good. A lot of it's free, too. Only thing I wanted to do was kind of tame it a little bit, so I threw this compressor on. Let's listen to it without. So those initial, like, you can't really see, but like when you press down on the piano, you can kind of hear the attack of those, and they just jump out a little too much. It could be that. It could just literally be the start of the note. To me, I kind of hear the pressing of it, and it feels like it jumps out a little bit. So I just put a compressor on. I went with the TB Tech Cenozoics compressor in clean mode. Let's check out these settings here. So it just pushes down on those notes, and then it kind of brings it up at a nice kind of musical sustain. can even go a little bit slower on that release. It might sustain nicer, but let's see. Let's see. Notice how it's sustaining nicer, or sustaining more musically, or sorry, releasing more musically, is directly tied to the release time kind of matching the beat. So if you see these transients here, it's actually releasing to the tempo, which is nice. Not something you have to do all the time, but I guess for the times that it works, it works. Next we have our violin. All right, let's listen to it. There's a little exercise for you instead. We'll do it this way for this little segment. Listen to what should be added or taken away or changed for this violin. And then we'll listen to the section where the violin is actually the solo. All right, what did you hear? What do you think I did? Guessing by the little EQ plugin here, I'm sure you could tell, but you cheated. If you looked at it, you cheated. This is what I did. I felt like the violin needed to be a bit more close up, a bit brighter, and stick out a little more, because it's a supporting part for the majority of the song, but then in this little section here, it's like a solo part, so it should bring up and be the focus of the song. How do I do that? Well, I do it with some volume automation right here, as you can see. And then I also do that with a Pultec EQ boosting the highs, because I want that timbre of the strings. I love the timbre of strings. I love the scratchiness and that beautiful texture that comes with it. So here's a little EQ set at 12K and boosting about 6 dB. It's there now. You can hear it. It's very up front. Let's turn it off. Violin's there when it's off, but it's here when the EQ's on. Here's our claps. Nothing on them. Here's our other claps. These claps are funny. They're just, I don't even think they're good. They're not even a good layer. Listen to them. They're pretty brutal. Might as well be the world's worst sounding metronome, but it kind of suited it a little bit. I did have to limit it a bit. Look at this little L2 here. You'll see how much we have to limit, because without it actually peaks quite a lot and it's not a very good sound. This, while it not being an amazing sound, works better because it's limited. It's not peaking your ears and saying, yo, I'm a clap. Hey, I'm a clap right here. Hey, look, I'm clapping, you know? So I did that for both. There's our clap. Can't really hear it too much because it's not a great sounding layer, like I said, but it's there. It complements. It's just a smidge. All right, onto our bass. This is my typical patch. If you've seen my videos and I've done a bass track on that video, you've seen this patch. Here it is. It's Moto bass. Typically I use a Scarby pre-bass, but I'm actually moving towards Moto bass. Only thing is it has some issues with the MIDI sustain, but whatever. We won't talk about that. We won't talk about that. It's going into an Amplitude 5 patch. We're using the SVX. It's an SVT Pro. Have a little bit of room in there too. If we look at the actual room level here, quite a lot. We then go into a compressor, just a slight little bit of compression with some tape saturation. That's our patch. Oh, we also have, the compressor and the EQ here. Everything's to taste. That's why I'm not really diving into the exact parameters of everything. We then go into this Fine Classic saturator. Let's play the bass and we'll add it. All right, so let's take off the Fine Classic saturator, then we'll put it back on. See what it's doing for the level of that bass? It is squashing it, which is nice. It's also adding these little harmonics here and there to make the bass pop out a little more. I wouldn't say pop out because it's not actually popping out, but it is heard a little more because we're adding more harmonics to it. Next up, we have bass lane. It's doing the same thing it always does. It just widens basses out. Very simple. We then have a slight bit of EQ around this frequency we're cutting, attenuating. really nice and in your face. And lastly, we have Real Life. Again, this is the Lord's work, really. Analog Obsession, you killed it with this plugin. I don't know what it does, but man, does it make it sound good. Let's turn it off. Then we'll put it on. So clean, so polished. I love it. So there's the bass. And then lastly, we'll jump into the mastering. This is light mastering. It's not actually like a full set of plugins for mastering, but it's just kind of touching up the master track, I guess, which I guess you can call mastering. Whatever. Here's the SSL comp. It's doing what it typically does with its slow attack, fast release. Now, I want you to think about if I had those claps really loud and if I had those kicks not limited and snare. Oh, I guess I didn't use a snare here, but the kicks not limited. Those people would be poking out quite a lot, and it would be triggering the gain reduction. It'd be triggering the compressor quite hard. So this gain reduction would be going like this. But because we limited those drums, it's only kind of barely tickling it, which is what we want. Next up, we have Pro MB. This is, I always do this. I set it into what I feel are the best ranges for the plugin. So let me just play, and then we'll click through. This kind of holds all our sub information, right? This is kind of more of where when the instrumental comes in. This is just a kick and a bass right now. More of where the tone comes from. This is like where the majority of the fundamentals sit. Here is kind of where the start of the timbre starts, so you can start telling what instrument is what. I'm talking loudly, sorry. You can start telling what instrument is what in this kind of area because of the timbre. Here's the majority of the timbre. This is where the kind of the clarity and the high end will come in. And then here is where that air will come in and kind of feel nice and quality and HD sounding in that high end. And so the general way I go about this is if there's too much of it, I'll either compress it or I'll lower it and then compress it a little bit. If there's not enough of it, I'll boost it, but I'll still have a range so that if there is too much, it will kind of cut back down to that range. And that goes for every kind of band. It's not like I don't use these bands for every single song. I choose the bands based off the song. Next, we have the SPL Machine Head. This is just a classic plugin I use. I put it on every single master. A lot of buses too. Let's take it off, put it on. Notice how it sounds louder, but it actually isn't. If you pay attention to the levels, it does not actually go any higher than it does on the input. And lastly, we have a Pro L to limit some of the peaks. If there is peaks, I'm not even sure. Let's see. No. And that's it. Actually, we'll still go back to that limiter. So that limiter is there just in case there's any peaks. I'm sure there is. That's probably why it's there. Not sure in which sections. Sometimes you hit drums a little harder. The velocities kind of are a little bit weird and messed up a little bit, so it'll go a little bit louder than you'd think. That's what this limiter is here for. But yeah, that's the mix. I didn't really do too much, and that's kind of because everything we recorded was really nice in the last Monday when we recorded this. So if you got good sounds going into a session, then you won't have an issue mixing, and then you won't have an issue mastering because your mixing is good, and you won't have an issue mixing because your recording is good. So like they always say, record like there's no mixing, mix like there's no mastering, and you'll get a good product or project or record out of it. All right, let's listen to this bridge into the chorus. That'll kind of bring everything together. It's kind of like covering every single part dynamically with the arrangement and sonically it covers everything. So we'll just listen to that part. Let's go for it. And that's it. That's the mix. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. If you got any questions about anything that I may have forgot to cover or something, let me know. The comments below. Send me a comment. Send me a DM, sorry, or leave a comment, and I'll reply. Maybe if it's a good comment. If it's a dumb comment, I probably still would reply. All right. Goodbye.